Hey everyone, what's going on? So today I'm going to be showing you guys all about the Mythical Beast archetype that's coming out in Extreme Forces, I believe. Um, Basically how the deck works is it capitalizes on spell counters and does some pretty cool stuff, such as basically like locking your opponent out of doing certain effects. So I'm going to go right into like the basic combo for this deck. Right now it's kind of to use Master Beast because he's going to add something called Jackal, and every time that you activate a spell while you have Jackal on the field, it's going to get a spell counter. And then you can remove 3 of those spell counters to special summon any one mythical beast from your deck. So that's the first part of the combo, and I'm going to show you a little bit more in depth as the replay goes on. And right after this one, I'm going to follow up with a second replay for you guys and the deck list that you guys want to see. That's why you're all here. And while you're checking out these replays in the deck list, make sure to leave a comment about your opinion on the deck, and also make sure to like the video and subscribe. And down in the description below, you can also find the link to my Patreon, my Facebook page, and the Garo Gaming Discord, as well as the Twitter and the Twitch. So make sure to check all that cool stuff out so you can keep up with Garo Gaming in real time. So after this, what happened here was I had King Jackal, and what this one does is by getting rid of 2 spell counters from anywhere on the field, he can gate an effect. And I also had Secret Village, which was stopping any spells. So I think it was kind of like he normal summoned, and then he realized that he couldn't actually do anything. That's where he threw the game. So like, right here you can see that this deck just completely shuts out Trick Stars. It stops their normal summon, it stops their light stage. Like, it just completely shuts them out, and they can't really play too well. So we're going to get right to the second replay, which is going to be a little bit longer, but probably not as long. Alright, so this is another really good hand right here. This is basically your standard hand. Like, this deck opens like a lot of hands I can just play very well. Opening anything with Master Cerebus will basically get you this kind of combo going here, where you're just going to end up with a ton of spell counters and a couple really cool negates on your board. So right here I have an Ash and a monster effect negate. And Master Cerebus, if he has 4 spell counters on him, he can't be destroyed by card effects. So that's pretty tough field to deal with right there. Yeah, there's really nothing he could do here. And now Master Cerebus can get rid of 4 spell counters and just banish a monster off the field and gain that monster's attack, which makes him just so powerful. He's definitely a hard monster to deal with. And this deck has its own hand trap right here, Mythical Beast Garuda. So if your opponent would special summon, you can get rid of 2 spell counters and bounce that monster to their hand, as well as special summon this. So it was right there, he realized he couldn't do anything, so he just left. But there wasn't anything that he could do, just like the Trickstar player, where I kind of just like shut them out of being able to play the game. And that was kind of it. Like, this deck is it just locks your opponent out of being able to play the game, really. Like, if you make a board like this, with the Garuda in hand and Ash in hand, there's nothing that they're going to be able to do. Alright, let's get right into the deck list. Alright guys, so to start off, with this deck list, there's a lot of spells, and I'm only playing 1 trap in here, but the main point of this deck, like I said, is to generate as many spell counters as possible, so that's why there's going to be a lot of spells. So to get right into it, there's going to be 3 Master Cerebus. So I have to explain each of these effects, because I didn't really have time to explain it well since I beat both those opponents fairly quickly. So, Master Cerebus' effect is his Pendulum effect, is he can destroy himself and then add any level 7 or lower Mythical Beast monster from your deck to your hand. So that's basically anything except himself. And then his monster effect is, if he has 4 spell counters on him, he can't be destroyed by card effects. And then he gets 2 spell counters every time a spell resolves. Finally, his main effect that really ties him into a good card is you can remove 4 spell counters from the field, then banish 1 monster your opponent controls and gain attack equal to the original attack of that banished monster, which makes him a monster that can't be destroyed by card effects, as well as a giant beat stick that's hard to deal with. Next up is 3 Astrograph Sorcerer. The reason this card is really good in this deck is every single Mythical Beast monster, they have an effect where, well, their pendulum effect is going to be that they destroy themselves to do something, which means Astrograph can just go pretty much nuts in this deck. Then there's going to be 1 Destrudo. This can get all these Synchro monsters down here. And this is a Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, if anyone was wondering. You can get like exclusive artwork on the Dawn of a New Era, which is a pretty cool simulator. You guys should check that one out. Next up is Mythical Beast King Jackal. So this is the other like king monster of the Mythical Beasts. His effect is a very important one in this deck. So first off, his pendulum effect is he'll destroy himself to special summon a Mythical Beast from your extra deck. And then, his monster effect is, each time a spell activates, he'll get 2 spell counters. And he has a quick effect to basically negate any activated monster effect once per turn, and then destroy that monster. So he's pretty tough to deal with. He gets rid of hand traps, as well as basically stopping your opponent from doing a whole lot. Next up is Mythical Beast Basilic. This one, only its pendulum effect is really that important. What it'll do is destroy itself and then shuffle a Mythical Beast back into your deck, and then you get to draw one. So plain simple, it's a really cool draw spell for the deck. Next up is Mythical Beast Garuda. So its first effect for its pendulum effect is it'll destroy itself to destroy a spell or trap on the field. Now its monster effect, which is also very useful, is that it can remove 2 spell counters from the field to special summon itself and then bounce the opponent's monster that they just special summoned. So that's very helpful, as it can get rid of problem cards really easily, make your opponent waste their resources, and basically get nothing for it. Then there's going to be 2 Ash Blossom, because it's just Ash Blossom. There's not really much else to talk about with that. Next is 3 Mythical Beast Jackal, which I talked about earlier. I mentioned that once it has 3 spell counters, it can tribute itself, not destroy itself. That's its pendulum effect that will destroy itself. Its monster effect will tribute itself. So, it'll tribute itself to special summon a Mythical Beast from your deck. Now its pendulum effect, which you don't really use, is it'll destroy itself to place 1 spell counter on one of your cards. Now that the monsters are out of the way, we can get right into the spells. 1 Upstart Goblin is just a spell card to generate an extra spell counter or 2. 3 Terraforming. So this deck is going to play Dragon Ravine, a Secret Village, and Endymion, so you should almost always have a target for terraforming. 3 Spell Power Grasp. So with this deck, since every monster will get a spell counter whenever you activate a spell, or at least the ones that you're going to put out on the board most of the time, this is actually 2 spell counters instead of just 1. Or 3 if it's going to be the Master Cerebus or King Jackal. Toon Table of Contents and Toon World. So the reason I'm playing this, I'm certain that you guys are looking at this like, but Garo, where's all your Toon monsters? So we're just going to slow down for a moment. What the Toon engine is first you're going to want to put out like a Jackal or your Cerebus or Jackal, or your Jackal or your Cerebus. You're going to want to put one of those out, and then you can activate these guys, and they're going to just search each other. So you're going to get a spell counter for each time a table of contents searches a table of contents, and then searches Toon World, and Toon World is essentially going to be an extra spell counter at the cost of 1,000 life points. Pretty plain and simple. Next is 2 Magical Boost. So it's basically the same thing as Power Grasp, except you have to send 2 cards from your deck, and the card that you target will get 2 spell counters instead of just 1. And now it has a second effect that if it's destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 monster from your deck that you can place a spell counter on. And if you do, you get to place 2 spell counters on that monster immediately. So what I prefer to do with this is set it usually, unless I need those spell counters, which I usually don't since this deck can generate a ton of spell counters really quickly. And just let your opponent destroy it or activate it to make Master Cerebus indestructible and card effects. So it's a very helpful effect that your opponent usually doesn't prepare for and they don't see coming. 3, Magical Citadel of Endymion. This is going to generate even more spell counters, and also if your monsters get destroyed that do have a spell counter on them, they're going to go right on the Citadel of Endymion. And Citadel of Endymion can also remove spell counters itself to pay the cost of your monsters that activate spell counters. So say you're moving 4 from Master Cerebus, you can remove them from Citadel instead. 1 Dragon Ravine, so that's basically just going to get Destrudo into grave. 1 Secret Village, I only play 1 of this because it can brick in hand pretty badly, but it's also really good because it just locks your opponent out of being able to do much. So you kind of just want to start to with terraforming, and then play it at the end of your turn, and then lock your opponent out of the game with a King Jackal and a Secret Village. Next up is 1 Magical Burst. So this deck doesn't really need a whole lot of traps, which is why I'm only playing 1. And this card is when each time your opponent activates a monster effect, you put a spell counter on this card. And then you can remove 6 from this spell counters and add 1 spell from your deck to your hand. You're not going to really use the effect to remove it, you're just going to use it to keep generating more and more spell counters. Now for the extra deck, which you're almost not going to use at all. So 1 Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. There's not a lot of targets for it, but it's an option if you desperately need it. And the rest is a lot of generic level 7 synchros. So 1 Yazi, because it can't be destroyed by card effects. A Mikael, because a lot of the monsters in this are light, so this can potentially work. A Dark Strike Fighter, Clearwing Synchro Dragon, Moonlight and Black Rose Dragon, Ancient Pixie and Ancient Fairy Dragon, and Arcanite Magician. If most of you probably don't know this card because it's pretty old card. It gets 2 spell counters when it goes on the field, and you can remove 1 spell counter from your field to destroy 1 card your opponent controls. So with this deck, Arcanite Magician is essentially a Raigeki because of how many spell counters you just create. This thing will just blow up your opponent's whole field if you put it on the board. And then for Link monsters, it's going to be just 1 Decode, an Akashic, a Linklebell, Underclock Taker, and Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh can tribute Jackal, in case you guys were wondering. And I would have put an Electromite in here. I know you guys are probably down in the comments where's the Electromite at? But unfortunately, the Dawn of New Era doesn't have Electromite. It has Elemental Hero Electrum, but that's not what we're looking for. There's no Electromite on here. So let me know what you guys think in the description below. Write down in the comments. And like I said before, while you're down in the description, check out all those cool links to all the Garo Gaming social media. Alright, I'll see you guys next time.